My brothers and sisters in Christ, now that we're in ordinary time, we'll find that the weekday lectionary readings aren't necessarily assigned in sets. That is, day to day, we make a progressive reading through each of the Gospels, and the first readings are not necessarily chosen to pair up explicitly with the Gospels, but instead we make progressive readings through different books. So this year, in the first week of Ordinary Time, we start this deep dive in our first readings into the letter to the Hebrews. And so for today, I just want to make a brief note both about today's particular reading, but the letter to the Hebrews in general. The reason I wish to do so is I think it's one of those letters that pops up every so often, but its structure is so formal it can be a little bit off-putting, and its theology is very dense. It's actually an extremely important and powerful letter, but it's not one that we easily glean inspiration from at first glance. So what's going on with the letter to the Hebrews? First of all, it's the only letter or book in the New Testament that we don't formally know who wrote it. That is, every other book has at least a claim to authorship, either from the writer itself or from some documentary way. The letter to the Hebrews has no claim to authorship on it. Many people for most of history loosely affiliated it with St. Paul, but it's clearly not a work of St. Paul. The writing style in Greek does not match Paul at all, even if there's some theological concurrence with Paul's way of thinking and writing. There's some fascinating modern scholarship that begs the question of whether it may have been written by St. Luke, which certainly the high style in Greek would fit. This is worth further exploration. But ultimately, regardless of who wrote it, the letter to the Hebrews is important in that while in the Epiphany and the end of the Christmas season, we've just looked at how the Old Testament has been fulfilled, especially in Christ's kingship, as he is the long-awaited Messiah, the king of the line of David to come. The letter to the Hebrews takes up a different angle by which Jesus fulfills the Old Covenant, and that is through his priesthood. The letter to the Hebrews is the only New Testament book that primarily focuses on the priesthood of Jesus, and it also focuses theologically less on the Exodus, which is a theme that comes constantly back about how God is leading his people through a new Exodus. But the letter to the Hebrews is focused on how Jesus is fulfilling if you will, the liturgy of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, as the Jewish people know it. When the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies, the sprinkling of blood, this atonement for sins made, the letter to the Hebrews unpacks the theology of how Jesus is the great high priest who once and for all fulfills, through the sprinkling, the shedding of his own blood, atonement for sins. And so for this reason, it's extremely important for our understanding of Jesus, of priesthood, of the liturgy, which is why it pops up in certain places on feasts for our readings. But particularly today's reading, and a theme throughout the letter to the Hebrews, is this sense of already but not yet. That's very important for just our Catholic worldview. And that is how Jesus has brought about fulfillment, but the fulfillment is still not completed. But already, but not yet. What do we mean by that? He has fulfilled the covenant and inaugurated something new for us in the life of grace, but we also don't know the fullness of it until the final culmination of all things. Until we are all united as one in heaven, things are still not completely fulfilled. And this is our experience. We see the things that God is doing, the way he is recreating the world and us anew, and yet we have not yet seen a glimpse of the final state of this. And so the letter to the Hebrews is written to the Jewish people that are struggling, as Jesus has brought, in a sense, has upset the apple cart of their way of acting, believing, of worshiping. And of course, the world around them is persecuting them. And what to do with this? When there's a hostile world, how do I hold on? Well, the same is for us as Christians. The modern world is hostile. The world has always been hostile to our way of thinking, because it's not only countercultural, but it's counter to the spirit of the world. Our citizenship is not here, but is in heaven. And so today's reading in particular speaks of our way that we see Jesus. Even though we don't see him with our eyes, we can see him and know him in faith, not just vaguely, but personally, intimately. And that this is for us a place of strength amidst the travails of this world, as indeed God is powerfully at work in us, bringing about something new, but we are yet to see the fullness of the glory. May our hearts build in anticipation that we might see the final end of all things and cling to Christ, our great high priest, who has made the sacrifice acceptable to the Father. May God bless you all.